Hi, I'm Miss Karen with the Santa Clara County Library, and I'm going to be helping and showing you today how to do some painting inspired by Van Gogh's The Starry Night. Miss Keela is also here helping me out. So if you have any questions, you can type them into the Q&A box, and she'll be able to help answer them or give a shout out to me so I can answer them for you. So let me change my screen here. Wrong box. There we go. Share. Okay, so here's a sample of what we're going to do. And it's going to be somewhat similar to what your project will look like when you are finished. So we're going to be creating some moon and stars and some movement to show the light around the stars and even the wind as it's moving through the air. And while normally we can't see that, we're going to represent that today in paint. So what we're going to need is some watercolor paper. And I have a pad of it. I'm just going to take one sheet out. There it goes. You're going to need some watercolor paints. So here's mine. And you might have fewer colors or more colors. It really doesn't matter. But we're going to need a yellow and some blues, or maybe even some purples too would work. So if you think like the colors of the night sky. I have some star stickers. I'm going to use the gold ones to represent some of the stars in the sky. I've got a couple of paint brushes, some thinner ones and some thicker ones. And you can decide how thick you want your brushes to be. And then I've also got some crayons, some blue, gray, yellow, and even white. And the last time I did this, I broke my crayon, but that's all right. It still works. Okay, and I'm going to switch screens again. Okay. All right, so we're going to do The Starry Night. So The Starry Night was painted by Vincent van Gogh, and he lived in France. And he was many different things during his lifetime, but towards the end of his life, in the last 10 years he was alive, that's when he did all of his painting, and he made more than 800 paintings. And one of the things that he's really known for is showing motion through the swirls and the circles. And The Starry Night is his most famous, oh, went too far, most famous painting. And you can see, you know, like around this star, you can see the circles of the light coming out, and just like all of the different stars. With the moon, you can see the circles going around the moon, and even just the air currents and the swirls of those currents. And so that's what we're going to be creating today with our crayons and with our paint, is that movement. And it's not going to look exactly like Van Gogh's painting because we are not Van Gogh, but it's going to wind up being very similar to this. Okay, so let's go back to our paper here and share. Okay, so to get started, let me zoom in a little bit. I'm going to start with my yellow crayon, and I'm going to make a moon. So I'm going to do that up here off to the side, and you're going to do the same thing. So just a crescent shape, as big or as small as you want it. This one happens to be a little smaller than the last time I did this, and that's all right. Nothing is ever the same. And color it in. And I would press a bit firmly because you want a lot of good color and no white spots, because we are going to go over with the watercolor. So we're going to put our moon on here. Just like that. Okay, so you can make your moon. And I'll give you a second to do that. Nice and dark. That's the first part of our sky. All right. Then the second part of our sky is we need some stars. So we're going to take our star stickers. And I don't know, just do a few, not too many. Maybe 4, 5, 6. Some stars up in the sky. wherever you would like to see some stars in your painting. And the number really is up to you. But the more you do, the less space you're going to have to show the movement of the wind. Hang on, I'm going to put one up here in the corner. Okay, so you can do that. And now that we have our moon and our stars, we're going to start making those swirls that we saw just like on Van Gogh, that kind of go around and around the different shapes. So you can do it as a spiral, you could do it as like dashed circles going around. That's really up to you. And again, press kind of hard as you go around, because you really want those lines to show up. And they can be smaller, they can be bigger, because different stars, depending on how far away from us they are, will be lighter or darker in the night sky. And that will show up a little bit differently when we look. So I'm going to make this one a little bigger. And with my lines being closer than this one, it's probably a brighter star. Okay, and maybe this star is far away. So it's going to have fewer lines. And you know what? I can even come in here with my white crayon. And this one, you're going to have to look really closely when you're doing it. Because on white paper, it will be very difficult to see before we put the paint over it. But pressing down rather firmly, you can make some white lines too, as if it was a fainter star. Okay, even I can barely see that until I paint it, so I know you're not going to see it, but I trust that you can handle a white crayon. And come here and do the next one. Maybe this one I'll do more as a spiral this time, for that light that's shining out. Ooh. All right. And we'll keep making our halos of light around your stars and around your moon. Okay. No questions yet, just checking. Oh, star is sticking up. Move my mouse. And come over here. And you know, the star will be kind of hard to see because it's right next to the moon, but that's okay. Its circle won't be very big. And then I'm going to come in here and make my lines around the moon. And I'm just kind of eyeball this, what would be a circle, and it's not going to be perfect. And we'll keep going around, pressing firmly so that they show up. And you can see it even intersects here, and that's okay. Because, you know, some objects in the night sky are going to be closer or farther away than others. And then in the middle part, it's going to be a different shape because we're going to want it to fill in here. And that time I didn't go all the way around because with a star here, there's going to be more light on this side of the moon. Okay, so that works for that. Next, I'm going to use my gray crayon, and I'm going to start making some of those swirls going through the sky and around the stars. So there's one there, and maybe it comes around this way. Even have one go like this and coming around again. I don't know, maybe even it's going to come around up here like that. And what I'm going to do now that I've done my first is I'm going to actually go over these lines because they look a little bit light and I want them to stand out more. So make those lines a little darker. Be a little tricky going back around the curves sometimes. That's all right. Nothing is ever perfect. And it might seem a little dark right now on white paper, but once we start adding and layering in the watercolor paint, it's not going to stand out so much, and you'll get that nice movement. Okay, one more up here. All right, that's one. Now I'm going to come back with my blue crayon and do much of the same thing. Add some swirls in. Ooh. And maybe they come like this and around, just so. And just like before, we're going to darken it up a little bit. And now your blue ones don't have to exactly match your gray ones. They could be shorter like I did up here or up here. Oh, I got some questions. Let's see. Okay, so remember if you've got questions to type them in the Q&A box because with the Zoom, I'm not going to be able to hear you. We do have your camera and your sound turned off. But if you type the questions in, we'll read them and then we'll be able to answer them. So I'm just going to come back and darken this up some more. And everyone's swirls will be different. You can do whatever makes you happy. Yeah, they might be a little farther from the gray. They might get close to the gray. That's all right. You can even come in with your white crayon. Oh, okay, let's see, what is our question? Well, if you don't have star stickers, you can always draw your own stars. And then just do the lines coming around them afterwards. Just make sure, like with my moon, the way I did it here, that you make it really dark so that you can see the star when you actually go to paint it. And now when you do the white, you're not going to really really be able to see it all that well at first, but it will show when you put paint over it. So make sure, again, that you're pressing down really firmly so that you have enough of it on the paper. And of course, my broken crayon makes this a little more difficult. So just do your best based on what you can see. Come in here like that. Maybe over here. And part of the surprise will be how much you see at the end. Maybe a line here. Put one here. You know, and if you want to come back, you can even come back and do some smaller ones. And because this time I'm not pressing as hard on the gray, it's not going to show as much once we put the paint on. But we can come and fill in just a little bit if you want. That's up to you. And part of it being your own artwork. And you can do the same with the blue. Come in here, doing this kind of thing. All right, and when you think you've got enough, you can stop. And I think I'll stop there. That looks pretty good to me. All right, put my crayons off to the side. All right. So because this is watercolors, we are going to need some water. Oh, I spilled all over the place. Oops. Oh well. Just wipe that up quickly with a towel because you need a towel too. And then your paints. And to start this, I'm going to start with some yellow. And because my stars and my moon are smaller, I'm going to use my smaller brush. Now, the wetter you get your paint, the more you're going to be able to spread it out and get a lighter color. If your paint is a little drier when you put it on, it's going to show up a little bit darker. And then the more you paint over the same spot, the darker it will also become. Now I want my crayon lines to show. So I'm going to start with my lighter yellow here, and I'm going to really get this wet. So I got some good paint to work with. So I'll just keep dipping my brush in the water and adding it to this cake of paint. They call these little things cakes. All right, so it seems like it's got a good amount of water. Let me make sure we got no more questions. Oh, we do. What colors? Yellows, blues, purples. Think about the colors of the night sky. You know, it's really up to you. That's part of it being art. You could be very modernist and do completely different colors. Oh, and see, that's dark. I want that thinned out a bit. So I'm actually going to get some more water from here to spread this paint out because it's a little, and I'm not worried about it being a perfect circle or stopping at the outer spot of the crayons. I'm just really worried about spreading this paint out a bit. And now it's, if you can see, it's a little hard sometimes. You can see the crayon marks right underneath where I've put the watercolor. And when you're happy, you just stop. And that looks pretty good to me. And I'm going to come and I'm going to do the other stars next. So just a little bit of that paint, probably some more water. And we'll start. Oh, I like that, how light that is. I'm just going to keep adding little by little. Maybe it needs a little bit more water to spread out. The paints will dry pretty quickly on their cakes, so don't be afraid if you need to add a little bit more water. All right, questions? Yes, you can draw your stars instead of doing stickers. That is not a problem. There's no one way to do this. Okay, so there's that one. Get a little more of this yellow paint, a bit of water. Come here and do this one. Of course, with the foil stars, the paint likes to sit on top of there. Okay. Okay. Come here. Oh, that's a little star, so we won't go out very far. Just enough. And if you were successful with your white lines, the paint will not stick to the wax of the crayon. And so it's kind of hard to see. But there's some spots, the camera's not very good, where the paint is actually not sitting because it's, the crayon is there. So let's see. Hard to tell though. That's all right. You just experiment and you go. Moving right along. There's another one. Oh, that's really dark. I'm just going around and around. And if the paint looks a little dark when you first put it on, keep moving it around or add a little bit of color or water before it dries so that you can still see those your crayon markings. All right, let's do the moon. Let's see. And I'm just trying to move my brush in the direction that light would be coming out of the different objects in the sky so that it's got a more natural flow and natural movement. So that's why I'm making these circular shapes around the stars and the moon and how that light would be coming off here. Okay, that looks pretty good for that. This will dry pretty quickly. All right, so you can see, I'm gonna wipe my brush off on my towel, just get the, wash it, rinse it off in the paint and then just rub it on here to make sure I've got no more yellow paint on my brush. So far I've got, let me move this up, make it easier to see. Okay, so I've got my swirls drawn into the night sky. I've got my stars and my moon and the color, the light that's coming off of them radiating around. All right, so I'm gonna go back to my paint. If you have choices in colors, we're gonna start with the lightest blue. And if not, and you've only got one color blue, we're gonna add a lot of water to that. So it's very, very light because we're gonna come back and add some darker paint on top of it. So like before, we're gonna get our brush wet. And I'm gonna start with my lightest blue here. Come in here and really kind of get that wet. So I've got some paint to work with. And you know what? I actually want to use my bigger brush, so let me rinse that off. Come in here, because there's a lot of paper here to fill up. Okay. All right, so with some paint on your brush, we're just going to start lightly kind of following the swirls around. And if it's dark, add a little bit more water to lighten up that paint. And that's one of the nice things about watercolors is you can really adjust how dark or light your paint is by how much water you're using. Okay. Come back in here. Move this around. Now try not to let the water pool too much because as it dries, it'll really warp your paper. I want to try and keep it light. And you know what? I put my blue over my yellow and got a little bit of green, and that is all right. This is very good.
Hi Karen. We have a few questions.
Okay.
What color are we painting around the stars? And
I just used a yellow. If you've only got one yellow, that's fine. Just thin it out with some water to make it lighter. If you've got more than one yellow or a gold, just choose your lighter one so that it kind of makes a halo effect.
And then are we doing first white around the stars and then yellow?
It doesn't matter. That's part of art. You get to decide what you want that to look like. I did yellow first and then white, but it could be whatever you envision the light around the stars to look like.
Awesome. Thank you.
Right now I'm just making little swirls, and it shows up better here where I put some white crayon and the paint really is not sticking to it. So you can kind of see that very faint little swirly line there that I did with the white crayon. So we're just going to keep going here and adding more paint. So you can see I'm still using blue. And when it starts to look a little bit dry, then I'll just add a bit more water to it. And just soft, quick movements. And if it looks a little dark, just a little bit of water to thin out those dark spots. Some more paint on. And some swirly bits. And you can see as it dries where the dark and the light is, you can see the movement in the paint. Okay.
Oh, we have another question.
Okay.
From Teresa. Are we filling in all the white background with our lightest blue color?
Pretty much. You don't have to do everything, but it's our base color, so a lot of it will be done. And if, you know, that's part of you deciding what you want your sky to look like. If you want it to be all blue or you want some white in there. When I did this one, I didn't make everything blue. You can see where I left white. So it's a little bit more abstract.
And then we have another question. What are we doing to the wind current?
We're painting over it. We're adding color on top of color.
Awesome. Thank you.
Where I just painted here, you can see where it's darker and there's a curve. That's some of that movement. And you got that because I allowed the paint to dry, then I painted over and it got a little bit darker. All right, I'm going to come up here to the top now. And I'm really not that worried about filling in every single spot. It doesn't bother me that much. And now I'm just going to kind of fill in a bit. And going around, following the curves. Some more water. And then if you've got paper down to protect your table, then you don't have to worry about the edge of the paper. And I'm actually kind of painting a little bit off the edge. Come over here to this side and finish coming around. And you're going to keep going with this until you're happy. And that looks pretty good to me. All right. Now I'm going to add in some more color. And at this point, if you have more than one blue, you can use your darker blue. If you don't, you can, once the spot dries, you can go back over it. And the more you paint over a spot, the darker it will get. And now I'm going to go back to my smaller brush. And you can see I have a few different colors. I think I'm going to try this one next. So I'll get my brush wet and come in here and start getting that cake of paint wet so that I can use it. And I'm not going to do as many lines as the other, but I'm going to kind of come through and start following some of my blue crayon. And you'll notice I'm not right on top of my blue crayon. I'm kind of next to it. And I don't need it to be perfect. I'm just kind of accentuating those colors and those curves. And the more you put on here, a little lighter touch there because I didn't do as much color. So the more you add, the more to the swirl there is. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to come in and use an even darker blue. Or you just keep going with your same blue and you start painting over and over and over. Get that cake wet. And you work on making the places you want to be darker, darker. And so I'm not going to touch the brush as much on the paper this time. I'm going to be a little lighter about it. Oh, that's a dark spot. A little bit lighter about it. Make some thinner lines. Add that in. And just put it wherever you think it looks good. There's no right or wrong way to do it. Come in here. Maybe a little bit more there. You know what, I'm even going to try some purple now. Wipe this off. You know, because sometimes the night sky, as the sun is going down, will have just a little bit of purple in it. So I'll use my purple paint. And so maybe it's just in these. It's really dark, isn't it? You add it in wherever it makes you happy. There really is no right or wrong way to do this. I don't expect yours to look like mine. It's going to look like you and what you think. Okay. So you can stop and, oh, this is a really wet spot. Let me move some of this paint around. You can even lightly go over some of your other colors so that they sort of mix a little bit. You go until you're happy. I think I'm kind of happy with that. It looks like wind moving in the night sky to me. Rinse off my brush, wipe it off. And then I'll just let my paints dry and put the color back on. So you can keep going as long as you want until you think you're done. That's up to you. But this is what mine looks like, and I'll let it dry. I mean, it is paper with water, so it might get a little curly. As it dries, if you want to put something on the corners to help hold it flat, you can. So you can keep painting away. And then once you're done, we'd love to see what you have been up to or what you've created. Come on. Oh, it's there. Okay. Oops. Oops. Oh, let me try again. Let me go back. Okay. So again, here's Van Gogh's, and you can see how the light moved and how much color he had in here when he swirled around. You know, the star is a little bit more white than it is yellow, and this is more yellow than it's white. So you can adjust that as you want. When you're done, you can share your picture, take a photo of it, but not your face. And on our website right here is our Kids Art Club gallery. You can send us your picture and we'll put it up there for everybody to see. Now our next project is going to be a no-sew heart pillow. So you can sign up for that on our website, on our events calendar. And just like this, there'll be the supply list, and you'll get an email from us again for the Zoom webinar if you come that way. So you won't need to actually sew anything, but you're gonna tie this pillow together and it'll look like a heart just for Valentine's Day. So, all right, everybody, have a good afternoon, and we'll see you again in a couple weeks.